What's up, everybody? It's Dan, Binder Boneyard, coming at you from the office. It is a dreary mid-November day. Just knocking out one of these podcasts so that everybody can keep listening. Every time I start to think that nobody is listening, then somebody says, "Oh, hey, I heard this," or "I do that," and so I just keep knocking them out. I appreciate everybody following along and telling a friend and talking about stuff. So thank you. I'm extremely grateful. And if you've been following along on social media, you probably saw that I've been on the road a little bit, trying to do that less and less. There's so much work to do here at the shop that, it used to make sense. When I had, 3-4 guys working here and stuff was getting done, I could justify being gone for a couple of days on the road because I was making money on the road as well. Not as much as I would make staying here and working, but it would cover my fuel and some expenses while I was gone. And the guys were working and it was fine. But when it's just me and Ty working, and of course Josie's answering the phone and shipping and stuff, but we have such a backlog of work. I don't like to show off how far behind we are on everything because it's terrible. It makes me feel awful when I look out there and see jobs that have been here for a while, and we started them and then guys quit and I had to pivot to getting an older job done or something else done, and then this other job that's half done sits for years sometimes, and that makes me feel terrible. And so I'm really trying to get off of the road, because even on the weekends, I'm here working. I might not be working. Forgot to delete or mute that. It's not that I'm here working on everybody's job all the time, but I'm here prepping for the work week, prepping for, just the next round, ordering parts, looking over what got done during the week, and putting together the game plan for the next week. Because we do get stuff done. If you saw online, stuff is leaving, things are happening. So me being gone, it cuts into productivity here. And we're just so far behind that I can't leave anymore. Maybe in the future when we're caught up or ahead of the curve and it's not quite so bad, then maybe I'll hit the road again. But for right now, I'm really limiting the road trips. But I say all that to say that I want today's podcast to be about road trips, and specifically getting the vehicle and yourself ready for road trips. You can start down at the basics. Like, it's amazing how many people I talk to that say they don't trust their truck to go farther than 20 miles outside of their town. And I say truck, I mean truck, travel, all scout, whatever. And not just internationals. I know some Ford guys that are like, I don't want to go past the city limits because I guarantee it'll break down. That's terrible. Really need to look at what's causing these problems and address them, because having a rig that you can't drive past the end of your driveway, why even have it? Like, really? Like, you think hard about why you have this albatross in your garage when, it's not reliable and it's not fun to drive. So this podcast is more focused on people that do have reliable vehicles that can drive them farther than 20 miles. So comfort, I am a mechanicals guy. I prefer to put it in gear and not have to worry about anything for the entire trip. So for me, I focus on that sort of stuff. But for a lot of you folks out there, it's different. You're more of a comfort type person. And that's the thing from driving newer cars. And I mean, even like, early 2000s, which are 25 years old now. They are infinitely quieter, cleaner, less smelly. There's more creature comforts, things like that. So when you become conditioned to driving, a flying couch, and then you go and get in your Scout, it's rough. It is a different world. I know guys that have taken out the bench seats in their Travelettes and put modern, terrible looking, ugly bucket seats in there because it's comfort. And, I've grown comfortable to the bench seat because that's all I've got. So, I mean, it's possible to adjust to these things, but, no, I mean, so comfort, especially when you're hauling your, wife and kids and everything around, or I'm sorry, your husband or your kids around, it's, comfort becomes a big, important thing. So, for me, what I've found is guys will put all this effort into sound deadening, Dynamat and carpet kits and all this stuff. But a majority of the sound that you get in the cab comes from wind noise. Assuming you don't have some crazy exhaust system or something, is terrible in the engine bay. But a lot of it is wind noise. So if your doors aren't adjusted right and the lips or the edges of the doors are catching the wind, if your door gaskets are in bad shape, if your window felts are in bad shape, or glass channels are not, good anymore, you get a ton of noise and rattle and vibration through those openings. So, I really try and encourage everybody to do, door gaskets, door seals, window track felts, that sort of stuff, because it keeps the sound down, it keeps the wind noise down, it keeps the rattles down, and it keeps smells from getting in. I know it's common on Scouts for exhaust to draft its way back into the cab through the hatch or holes in the bed floor or around the tailgate. So doing gaskets and stuff on the tailgate, making sure the floor doesn't have holes in it, and then making sure your exhaust is routed, sideways or down. A lot of the systems we do here have turn downs on them at the quarter panel. So you get that exhaust going down. One, it makes the truck quieter. And two, it gives the exhaust somewhere to go before it drafts up and gets caught in that vortex that's behind the back of the truck as the air is swirling around. So I recommend seals and things like that. They're not terribly expensive, couple $100. They are a little bit labor intensive to install, but nothing that you couldn't do with basic hand tools, pliers, things like that. If your hardware is rusty, it may add some time because you'll probably strip out a screw that you'll have to drill and tap or something like that. It could get away from you pretty quick. So if that is something you're going to do, pull the door panel and start soaking all the hardware in Blaster or Croil or whatever, weeks before you're going to do it. Don't do it the day before. It doesn't have time to soak in. You need to do it weeks before. I've been amazed what being proactive and just religiously every day, first thing in the morning, whenever you think about it, when you get home from work, hit all those fasteners, and not the heads of the fastener. That doesn't do any good. The head is not where the action is happening. It's the threads and the threaded inserts inside the door. So if you're going to do your channels and you need to take the tracks out, so on the outside of the door you see Phillips screws, but on the inside you see the inserts and threads. So you need to spray the insides with the penetrating oil. I know that sounds so elementary, but you have no idea how many people I've seen just douche the bolt head, the screw head, with whatever chemical is their favorite, thinking that that's going to somehow seep through the seal surface of the head of the bolt to the sheet metal and then down into the threads. Like it doesn't. You need to go the other way. Spray the thread end so that the chemicals can hit the threads and maybe make their way down into the threads, which it can happen. I know some guys like the acetone and ATF mixture. I've heard good things about that. I think Project Farm tested that, and anecdotally, I think it did pretty well in his tests too. But anyway, I'm just saying, don't just spray the head of whatever. You got to get to the actual thread part. Anyway, so that's what I look for first, and then secondly is just any holes you have. If there's speaker holes in your bedsides that don't have any speakers in them, if there's rust holes in your floor, if there's holes in the firewall, even something simple like Gorilla Tape over the hole before you put the floor mat down or before whatever can go a long ways. And then the other thing that gets overlooked a lot is you get a ton of noise through the roof. Like a lot of Scout 2s that I see, the headliner has fallen out years ago. The insulation batting is gone, and it's just single layer sheet metal and then the wind hitting it. So you need to do something about that. We like to use these foam pads, and we cut them to shape and then glue them up there with 3M trim adhesive, but then secure them with like some sheet metal strips or something, just in case the adhesive doesn't hold or melts off. And then the new headliner goes on. You can buy headliner kits from all the vendors, but just putting the foam pad up there makes a world of difference. If you've seen any of my videos of the black truck with the diesel in it, you'll see I have those foam pads glued to my roof, and it has made quite the difference. They're cheap. They're easy to get, easy to figure out. The other thing that guys do and we use a lot is like Dynamat or Fat Mat. It's that butyl backed aluminum foil looking stuff that it sticks right to the sheet metal. We use that a lot in the restorations, normally in hidden areas where you don't see it, or in areas where it's going to get covered with a carpet kit. It can't go out anywhere that's going to be high wear, high traffic, that kind of thing. We use it on the insides of the door panels and insides of the door shells when they're clean and the stuff can adhere really well. So that's probably something else I would look into before you do crazy, carpet kit or anything like that, is while you have your door apart and you're working on your window channels and your felts, clean up that inside of that door and stick some Dynamat or Fat Mat in there. I'm starting to sound like one of my customers with you're in there, go ahead and do this. Like it's so easy. But anyway, it's something to consider. You can buy a roll of Fat Mat on Amazon for $70. It covers a lot of material. So, you think about doing stuff like that. And then there's places that people don't think about, like under the dash. The cowl area on D series are like speaker boxes. They're just this hollow tube that runs from side to side. It's got a couple of vents in it that just resonates engine noise. Just like, it's like like a didgeridoo. Like it just, all you hear out of these vents is engine noise or wind noise. So that's one thing that we really do a lot of on our restorations is trying to get that cowl opening drone to go away through chemical coatings and Dynamat and things like that. One thing I'm probably not going to get too deep into with this one is the chemical coatings side, the lizard skin and stuff like that. This is more dedicated to the guys that already have drivers, they're already going down the road, and they just want to do something that to help make it more comfortable in the interim. If you're doing a full restoration, then please, by God, do, etch primer, do the lizard skin sound deadener, the lizard skin ceramic coat, top coat it with your Raptor. Then you do the Dynamat and carpet kit with mass backing and go that route. But for you guys that are just, working on your daily drivers or your weekend projects, the chemical coatings, there's a big process, and, I don't care what anybody says, you can't just put it over the top of rust, and you can't just put it over whatever. But so yeah, look at the Dynamat in your door panels, inside your bedsides, that goes a long ways too. So really getting the wind noise from the roof down, and then the drone from the double wall panels, like the cowl, the doors, the bedsides, that kind of thing will help a lot as well. And then finally you move on to the floor, and that's, if you're going to do a carpet kit, then you would do Dynamat first, and then the carpet kit. If you don't want to stick anything on with the Dynamat, you can do those foam pads like you used on the roof. They're interlocking, and you can stick them together pretty well, and then throw those down first before the carpet kit. Those go a long ways towards killing a lot of sound also. And then the final step, are things like door cards. You've seen those. They're like the cardboard covers to go over the metal panels on Scouts and trucks. My black truck, again, has nice door cards, and that does go a long ways towards insulating that door drone that you get from that panel. Scout 2's had them too, and even if they didn't come with them, you hack out a piece of hardboard, you wrap it in a piece of fabric that you like, and you screw it to the door panel. And sure enough, it'll definitely kill some drone and some decibels. So things like that, you got to think about wind noise and rattles. And then you start looking externally, if you've got a terrible exhaust system and it's got a bunch of leaks and rattles in it, probably should look into getting a new exhaust system done, some good mufflers, point those pipes at the ground, kick them out 45 from the quarter panel. That helps a lot with the sound, and then also exhaust intrusion. And then, if you have mud tires or really aggressive tires, they're going to be loud no matter what. You can't do much about them. But a good all-terrain, they're real quiet on the road. The BFG all-terrain is probably the loudest that I've had. But a tire is also a little quieter going down the road. So, think about those kinds of external things. Antennas can whistle and make wind noise. So if you've got like a CB antenna and all that, you maybe look at trying to run one of the small, like the stainless whips instead of the big fiberglass coily whips. And accessories will whistle too or make noise. A winch bumper with a winch on it and all the stuff, it cuts the wind different and will make wind noise. or if you've got a tire carrier set up on the back and it rattles or wobbles around, even if it's not rattling, just its movement can create noises that compound with all the other noises that you hear. And, I say all that because my black truck has the diesel, it has a straight pipe, and it exits out behind the cab in front of the passenger back tire. I have every single trick that we've talked about in that truck. All the sound deadening material, all the stuff, everything. It is still loud and it still drones, and I have a really good stereo in there. And 10-inch sub, nice amp, a couple of 5s under the seat, some 6x9s behind the seat, things like that. And so what I find myself doing is turning the radio up louder and louder to get over what drone and engine noise I have. Well, if you're on the road for 8 hours, 8 hours of the stereo cranked to 11, you don't realize it, but it's hard on your ears and it's tiring. It's amazing how tired I get from just sitting there driving, because my truck's not that hard to drive. The black truck is pretty effortless to drive. So, you don't think about it, but you end up with just like ringing ears, and you feel like you've been at a Def Leppard concert all day, and it just wears you out. So, my recommendation is, you probably already know this, but don't drive so long. If you're going to plan a road trip with your Scout and it's 10 hours in a normal car, then you need to figure it's going to be 2 days, 6-hour days or 7-hour days in your Scout, just because usually you're slower. Usually there's more stops. Usually you just need brakes. And so, always add more time if you're road tripping with your original rig. Make sure you take time to rest or walk around. I can go, 4.5 hours between fuel stops in the black truck, and you start getting stoved up. My knee starts to hurt because I don't have cruise control. So, my knee starts to ache from holding the accelerator pedal at that position for, 5 hours straight. It just is tiring. So, that ear protection, like I wear earplugs in the summertime because we'll have the windows down, and with the straight pipe, it's offensive coming in through that passenger back window. It's just, it's assaulting. So I wear earplugs, Josie wears earplugs, and the wind noise, having all the windows down in a Travelette going 70 on the highway, like that is also just aggressive. Like it is, your worst ex-wife in your ear holes all the time. So, I do wear the orange foam earplugs. I don't have good luck with earbuds. Everybody's always like, oh, try these earbuds. And my ear holes are shaped weird. I don't know what's wrong with me, but earbuds just fall out. I even did those like moldable, like decibels or whatever that company is, where you heat the things up in hot water and then you jam them in your ear hole and let it take the shape of your ear. And even those fell out. They just don't stay in for whatever reason. So I don't have good luck with earbuds. If I'm going to wear headphones, I'm going to go to PCI and I'm going to get legit race car headsets and go that route if it has to get that to that point. Because there's not much more I can do for sound deadening in the black truck other than a muffler and run the pipe back farther. But that doesn't do anything for wind noise and road noise. But I do feel like it would be pretty cool with some race car headsets. But no, as far as the normal people in their road trips, like that's kind of my suggestion. A comfortable seat, maybe having some upholstery work done on your front seats. might be helpful if your seats are in really bad shape. I'm pretty lucky because Josie's recovered mine a couple of times, and it's got good foam, and the springs have been repaired, and they're nice. You know, we do some tricks to make them a little bit more recline. Single cab trucks, I really feel for you guys because you don't have much room for reclining. That's why I love the Travelette so much. There's all that room you put a spacer underneath the front mount on your bench seat, and it tips the thing back a few inches and really gives it a nice, comfortable lean, at least for me. I mean, I drive, I'm a very comfortable driver. I like to be far away from the steering wheel, my legs stretched out, and then leaned back. That's just how I drive. I know some of you guys like to be making love to the steering wheel, and I don't know how you can drive like that, but some of you do, because I drive your trucks. These things show up and seats are all moved up, or the tilt wheel in your Scout's down all the way. And I don't understand how people are comfortable that way, and maybe they aren't. And that's why they don't want to drive very far. But anyway, mostly the sound is what gets you. The sound and the drone and the vibration, those are what wear you out the fastest, I think. And it also makes it less fun for other people to be with you in there. You got to yell at them all the time, or your kids are in the back and they're screaming because they can't hear anything, and it smells weird, and they're asphyxiating from the exhaust fumes. And so, those kinds of things go a long ways towards making your rig more comfortable on the longer drives, because it is fun to drive your truck around the country. If you haven't done it, I recommend it. It is a hoot, especially when you take your Travelette to Arkansas and people have never seen one before. And, I had a lady ask me one time if I made my truck. She thought it was homemade. So, yeah, it's kind of fun. But anyway, those are my tips and tricks. Hopefully it made sense. Hopefully you guys got some out of it. I appreciate you. I enjoy every single one of you. I love you very much. And until next time, I am Dan from Binder Boneyard.